Please welcome Fraternity President Elizabeth Howard DiMartino, Boston, to moderate today's Past President panel. Welcome to the stage, Past Presidents, Megan Shaw James, Millsaps, Kimberly DeFay D. Sullivan, Pepperdine, Phyllis Durbin Grissom, Southern Methodist, Jackie Brown Clark, Texas Arlington, Michelle Pop Schimberg, Florida, Sarah Coons Lindsay, Miami, Ohio, and Eve Woods Riley, Southern Methodist.
Well, good afternoon, Tri-Deltas. We have a treat in store for you today. I can just say with all honesty that I have been looking forward to this panel for the last year when we started talking about it. It is hard to put into words what it feels like to sit up here with all of you. It's truly a treat and it's humbling, and I think we're in for a real fun conversation this afternoon. As you know, each of these women has led our organization with strength, with grace, with wisdom, and I feel so fortunate to be able to follow in your footsteps and the path that you all have set by your example and by your wise counsel. And I know that I can speak for everyone in this room when I say we treasure the lifelong legacy, the example of lifelong service and the legacy that you've shared with us. And truly, your service doesn't end when your term ends, and you continue to support and guide us year after year. It does not. And generation after generation. So I want to start the conversation by saying something that has been top of mind for me lately, and that is this role comes with some surprises. And no matter how prepared we feel as leaders, there's always something that comes up that surprises us and stretches us as new and interesting things happen when we work with members of our organizations, with our collegiate women, with other volunteers, with other individuals. And so I would love to start by hearing from all of you. So if you would, I know most of us know who you are, but share your name, what years you served as Tri-Delta's president, and then something that has surprised you about the role.
Well, great. I guess I will
You'll
go
start.
first as our recent past president,
Yes, ma'am.
Megan Shaw James. I served from 2020 to 2024. And I would say, I'm going to take a little bit twist on this question. So I'm about a year out. So I'm not going to talk about what surprised me about the role. I think I want to talk about professionally what this role did for me. And so one of the things I have loved about my volunteer experience in Tri-Delta for about 20 years, your volunteer role prepares you for life, prepares you for your career, to give back into your communities, and truly serving as fraternity president catapulted me into a C-suite level. It really gave me the skills. You're talking about business acumen, you're talking about legal issues, you're talking about crisis communication, but you're talking about how do you stay calm? How do you know that there's going to be change in life, there's going to be stress. So a year into serving as fraternity president, I had the opportunity to become vice president for student life, and it really was the confidence leading this organization that allowed me to say yes and to do that. And I kind of joke, we'll be in a crisis situation and I'm probably the calmest person in the room, and they're like, how do you do this? I'm like, it's all Tri-Delta. And it truly is Tri-Delta. And so that was just such a gift, not just the skills, but the confidence, I think, of serving as fraternity president.
Absolutely. Thanks. And Kimberly, something surprised you or maybe a favorite moment you want to share?
I'll do a favorite moment.
Okay.
I will lead off with it's a bad moment that led into a good one, so that you're aware. So my name's Kimberly DeFay D. Sullivan. I served from 2016 to 2020. Good, just checking. And I think was something that surprised, or a happy moment, was in the moment, the last thing that a fraternity president or a board wants to do is to go and close a chapter. This is something that is extremely difficult. We talk about it, we discuss it. We know it hurts the members that put their lives into it. We know that the alumni are so enriched in it, and we also know that whereas our decision is preventing others becoming Tri-Deltas, which really hurts. And so when I was fraternity president, unfortunately, I did have those opportunities, and I felt that it was very important that Tri-Delta showed up in those moments. And years later, I received a letter or an email from somebody who I had to close their chapter, and she had to write a paper about somebody that she admired who had to make a difficult decision in how they delivered it. And she said that during the pain, she felt the love of Tri Delta by the way that I had delivered it. So my message would be that it's easy to celebrate the great and happy moments, but in those very difficult times, that's a time to shine.
Powerful example. Thanks, Kimberly.
That's great. I love that. I feel the same. Feel very much the same way. So I'm Phyllis Grissom. I pledged Tri Delta at Southern Methodist University, and I served from 2012 to 2016. I always want to say 2014 to 2016, but 2012 to 2016. And I'm going to share a kind of a collection of favorite moments. When you are a volunteer or when you are, fraternity president, a lot of times Tri Delta is a sea of faces and a sea of women, and you meet a lot of people and you make these very brief connections. As we have heard this weekend, those connections are very important, but I was always left wanting more. Oh, if I could just have another 5 minutes with you and we, can make a deeper connection. But my favorite moments were when I visited a city or a town and someone would pick me up from the airport or let me stay in their home. And some of those people are here in this room today. One of my most treasured memories is staying at my field consultant friend's home in Lafayette, Louisiana, Dana Becker's. She hosted me for a weekend when I went to give the Sarah Ida Shaw Award, and we just had just such a special weekend. Teresa McKinney is here, and she picked me up at the airport when I was at the Missouri Centennial, and I got to have dinner with her and her sister. And of course, asked me later, but like the evening of a lifetime at Eve Riley's house.
Her husband, in the After Dark panel.
Oh, no, it was so spectacular, y'all. Joe, her husband, kept the fire burning in this beautiful living room that we sat in. He kept the wine glasses full. We looked at our watches, and I had been there for Founders Day. We got back to the house probably about 9 o'clock. We stayed up till like 3 in the morning talking. And that's not even an exaggeration. And then Joe and Eve fixed breakfast for me the next morning. So seeing my sisters in their home environments, having them pick me up from the airport, learning about them as individuals and just deepening those connections and friendships was one of the many, many, many gifts of serving in this role.
Great.
I'm Jackie Brown Clark, and I served from 2008 to 2012. And I would agree with Phyllis that it was so much fun to go and visit the different chapters and alumni and collegiate chapters to be able to speak at different events. But the thing that came to my mind was programming that we did. And when I first became president, we launched the Reflections Body Image Program, which has evolved into Body Image 3D that we still do today. But it was so fun to see the women grasp hold of that program and participate. There were about 40 chapters, I think, that first year. And it wasn't just for our collegiate chapters. We opened it up to different campuses and other organizations. And then the highlight was when we had Fat Talk Free Week. And I'm sure there are some of you in here that remember Friends Don't Let Friends Fat Talk. And it was just great fun that week to see the women posting things. Social media was just beginning. And they were posting things on social media. YouTube video was out, and there were about 30,000 women that pledged no fat talk during that very first week that we had Fat Talk Free Week. And so it was just exciting to see their enthusiasm, not only the collegians, but also the alumni.
That's great. That's great.
Hi, I'm Michelle Schimberg, and I served Tri Delta from 2004 to 2008 as fraternity president. And in thinking about some of the special or my favorite memories, the things that convention and the candlelighting ceremony and seeing the faces of women of all ages together. That's always a highlight. I remember going to St. Jude when we completed our first $1 million gift, and that was huge. But what is my favorite memory of that time are some of the people that I had the chance to work with and the relationships that you develop with volunteers, with collegiate members that you may work with, some very special memories with staff members. And a lot of those relationships were formed when we were dealing with the difficult things and the problems. But the support of this group and the volunteers and all the staff and folks around are really what sticks with me as my favorite part of being fraternity president.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Lindsay, and I served as Tri Delta's president from 2000 to 2004. And I'm just going to add a little bit to what Michelle just said about our decision-making on our partnership with St. Jude. The partnership decision was made at the board prior, which I sat on, and Eve and was also on that board. But during my term as president, we made our first commitment of $1 million and went to St. Jude to announce this commitment. But before we went, we sat around the board table like, this is unbelievable. $1 million in 5 years? How are we even going to do that? We got to really, we knew our members could do it, but it had been a very, a journey to that point in Tri Delta. Let me just say, the partnership, was a change for us in Tri Delta. And so it was quite a big step to be able to even announce the 1 million, which of course we then met in, I think it was 3 years. And then to look now at where that partnership has become and knowing that this past year we raised $6 million in 1 year. So that is one of my very favorite memories and something that I'm just so proud of that Tri Delta has accomplished.
Thanks, Sarah.
I'm Eve Riley, and I served before many of you were born. Or even an eye, and I mean, that sparkle in somebody's eye. I served from 1992 to 1996. It was, and I can still walk. They've been worried about me getting on this chair. I can do it. There's so many favorite moments, but a lot of my term was a difficult time. There was a lot of universities didn't want us around. They wanted us gone. I met a lot of university people. And Gwen Wynn, who was president between Sarah and me, and I went, and she was from Alabama, I was from Texas. So you can imagine how thrilled they were up in the Northeast for us to see them. They acted like we knew nothing, but we did. We knew what was going on. Anyway, but my favorite moments probably were new chapters, establishing new chapters. There was just nothing like that. It's such a thrill to see the smiles on those new members' faces, and the university is happy to have you. And so those are probably my favorites. I love the times when I get to have people in Waco. So if any of y'all come, let me know, and I'll fix lunch for you, or do whatever. I think the hardest thing for me, biggest surprise, was that not everybody was as gung-ho as I was about Tri Delta. And I was telling a friend at lunch that I almost turned in my badge when I was a sophomore. I was so disillusioned. We didn't have a very strong sisterhood in my chapter, and so my lifelong experience turned out so much more wonderful than my chapter experience. So if any of you are having trouble or you know somebody, tell them to hang in there. It gets better and better.
Thanks for sharing that. And what a powerful way for us to end our introduction section, with just kind of tying it back to what we've been hearing about our member experience and, you know, the impact you can have. And you just never know that sophomore who might be a little bit disillusioned, or that junior who thinks I can walk away from this, could be sitting up on this stage. You know, if we can nurture, if we can make that connection, if we can belong. I think among this group there have been plenty of opportunities to experience change and use our change management skills. So I'm going to start the next question thinking about leading through change and how important that is, not just from this lens, but in the work that we do each and every day. We're all dealing with change at an incredible rate on our campuses, among our women's lives, and our own personal lives. So this is for Michelle and Megan and Kimberly. Each of you led Tri Delta through some pretty specific moments of change, significant change, where perhaps the path forward wasn't clear, or who could have imagined the kind of change that we would walk through. The decisions that you were tasked with really helped shape our organization. So Megan, you stepped into leadership during the pandemic, and really a moment of unprecedented change in our world. And so can you tell us what it was like to step in and make decisions when there was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of change happening, and how do you keep the ship stable during a moment like that?
Yeah, so a little fun fact, I got the call from the LCSC on March 7th, 2020, asking me to be fraternity president. We had finished an executive board meeting. I was going to DFW, and I'll never forget, I'd met Lenora Aders on the way there, and there were no masks, and we were starting to hear about this, and within 48 hours, it was starting to shut down and all of that. I never wavered in my decision to say yes, because Tri Delta has been the constant in my life forever, and I knew Tri Delta would not waver through any storms. And so I'd say a few, well, you know me, 3 lessons, always 3 in Tri Delta. One, I would say having a fraternity president like Kimberly, who became for us. So she was fraternity president when all this was happening. But once we knew I was going to say yes, we really made decisions together because she had the expertise, she had the knowledge, but she knew what decisions we made. The next executive board would be the ones to carry that out. And I think that's just a lesson for all of us. You have got to communicate with your team members. You have to trust each other. And so we always did that. We were moving at a fast pace, but sometimes you do have to pause and make sure you are talking to each other and making sure that you're on that same path. I'd say 2, I learned about a great change management and leadership decision principle. A lot of people think fraternity presidents, you know it all. I'm gonna let you in, you do not know it all. And also I think sometimes as Tri Deltas, we wanna be perfect. We wanna make the right decision all the time. And that just is not possible. So there's a principle out there, the 40 to 70% principle, if you've heard about it. So it's you wanna make sure you have about 40 to 70% of the data that you need to make a decision, or the confidence. So when you reach that 70% confidence in a decision, you then have to rely on your intuition and what you know is right. If you're waiting to 100%, you're gonna miss opportunities. You're gonna put energy that you are precious to you. So I think being able to know once we had that 70% that we would move forward, and just knowing every decision is not a final decision for the next 100 years. Being able to ideate and to go back was so important. But my third thing that was the greatest gift was our podcast had just launched. We were doing the walking challenge during COVID, so we could all safely be moving our bodies. It was good for us physically, mentally, and that was really a saving grace for me. I mean, so I was at home, I had a kindergartner, I was trying to teach how to read. A 2nd grader, I was working at our state's only academic medical center during all of this. And that was my saving grace, is during the day, I'd put on my kindness Tri Delta hat, I put my ear pods in, and then I feel like a sister was right next to me talking. And the incredible Ginger Hicks had recorded a podcast about the history of Tri Delta throughout time and how Tri Delta has weathered the storm, different wars, different talking about universities. And that gave me the confidence to know, I didn't know exactly what was gonna be, but that Tri Delta would persist. And the reason why is because of our North Star, our purpose, and our values. And so again, when you get to that 70% confidence, this is right, and you have to say, what is that intuition? If you look to our purpose and you look to our values, it will guide you. And truly, I learned from all these leaders who are on this stage, it's learning your history, but never looking back. It's looking forward. It's always what is going to be next. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things is, as a fraternity president, being on the executive board, you're not going to see the fruits of your labor during that time, but it's knowing what's going to come for generations to come. So that's how we kind of got through that time.
Thank you. And I love the reminder of importance of collaboration, that you were walking through this time of change.
You didn't mess it up. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Look, Sarah Ida Shaw said to pass the torch undimmed.
Right.
I needed to make sure
Well
that
done.
torch was getting passed on.
But you also talk about self-care, super important, I think, during that.
And
as
Elizabeth, if you
leaders.
don't mind, I would just want to share real quick, my favorite memory was then convention in San Diego and convention in Florida. So for the first year and a half, I never met my board. I had not seen Tri Deltas. We had not given each other a hug. And so it made me realize the gift of physical presence. And so I think convention, but CLC, you were mentioning getting to see the collegians. But I have to say VLC has always been one of my favorite memories because it is like a homecoming. You get to see people you volunteered with for 20 plus years, catch up, but you make a friend and you make a connection at every single VLC. And so when you're in a volunteer, and I've heard this today of, oh, I've been emailing with this person or I've been talking to them.
Yeah.
It's so nice to meet in person. And some of the best friends I've made at VLC have been sharing a shuttle ride, being in a car together. I mean, I think in my first 2 days, I've made, 3 new friends right here. And so as a volunteer, it doesn't matter if you're 6 months into this or you're 50 years.
Yeah.
It's a special time to be together in person.
Those connection points. Well, Kimberly, you really issued in a new era for the fraternity and thinking about expanding how we think about leadership. So your board really embraced critical conversations during a time of a lot of unrest within the country, and we're really spearheading our efforts to include women of color on our boards. So I'd love to hear from you about navigating those critical conversations and continuing to lead in this moment of change.
Yes, so as Megan said, I was hoping to deliver the fraternity in a silver, gold, and blue perfect box for you, but in March of 2020, as you know, COVID hit, and then we had George Floyd's death, and then we had Black Lives Matter, and then we also had Abolish Greek Life, all leading up to Megan's presidency. And at that time, the slate had already been delivered, and the fraternity knew who their leaders were going to be. But it was really important at that moment to realize that our members' voices weren't all on the table, or at the table, and they weren't all there to be able to contribute and lean in and be able to say the things that needed to be. And so I thought a lot about that. I went to the boards, not just the executive board, but I went to the Tri Delta Housing and Foundation board chairs, and I was like, people are missing in our leadership. And so then I made the call to Linda McClendon, which I know she's here, but I don't know where you are, but there you are. And I still remember where I was standing. Linda was the chair of the LCSC at the time, who had delivered a slate, but I told her, I was like, it's time for Tri Delta to rise to the occasion. We could wait 2 years, but 2 years seemed way too long at the moment, so I appreciated the LCSC's time at that moment to be able to produce a slate within 2 weeks because we had a virtual convention to do. But I want to say I will always be grateful for those women that said yes in that moment. It wasn't that Tri Delta was taking a chance on them. Oh my gosh, why am I getting emotional? I always get emotional with that. It was that they were taking a chance on Tri Delta. And I was so proud to see that our members' voices were there and that they continue to shape us today.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Kimberly. And Michelle, you helped guide us through some shifts in how we govern. So speaking of our boards and the work that our boards do, you really spearheaded for us a new era in terms of the way that we think about our operations and our governance. And so talk to us about that, because that's, this is a big organization with many, many decades of operating in a certain way. And so talk to us about what that's like to govern through that kind of a shift.
So as I think back about the way we used to govern Tri Delta with one fraternity board of 5 members and a nominating committee that got elected when they showed up at convention, like that's how we did it, and they picked our leadership. Tri Delta has been so lucky with the kind of devoted leaders, skilled leaders who had gotten us to the point that we were a leading premier organization. But we knew how the world was changing and that women were going to be working and women were going to have less time and not as many women would be able to come to convention or volunteer for 25 years before they were elected to service. And so at the fraternity council level, the board level, we were talking a lot about how do we prepare for what the world is going to look like and make sure that we can continue to have and can continue to strengthen our leadership at the board level. And so it seems to me, and some of my friends up here were all part of those discussions as I look down the line, we talked about it for a long time. We talked about what do we want this to look like? What do we think it needs to look like? We talked to our NPC sisters to see what they were doing. We looked at other organizations, professional organizations, and gathered a lot of information, worked with consultants. And so it felt like, had been talking about that for a very long time before we put together a model of what we thought could work. And then the key of leadership is getting your members to agree and come along with you. And so I want to go back to my biggest surprise was how strongly our members feel when they agree and when they don't. And so that is a part of what I remember. And so we spent a lot of time workshopping, talking to our members, listening, doing town halls. And while maybe those of us at the leadership level were ready to make a change sooner than what we did, we made the decision in some cases to put off that major change until we felt like we had the membership support. Mm-hmm. And so I think my lesson in this is that being strategic means making decisions today. I learned this yesterday in Fraternity Council, making decisions today to prepare you for what's coming. And even though the leadership might have been ready, we had to wait and make sure that it was the right time to get the membership to come along with us. And so that communication, two-way communication, was essential in making that change and moving forward. And the best part about being past president is being able to see how some of those decisions have played out. So seeing the National Housing Board doing the work they're doing, mm-hmm. and seeing the foundation doing the work it's doing, and the executive board doing the work it's doing. That is the joy of being in this seat, yeah. Right? Is because you get to see what has come from that.
Yeah, you dream about that.
For years, right.
And then to see it actually happen.
And to see it, yeah. That's exactly right.
Yeah, and I think that's such a lesson for our chapter volunteers. Wherever you're sitting, whatever role you're in, you invest and you may not see the fruit of that.
Right.
You know, so you don't have to be sitting on this stage for that lesson to be true. Oftentimes, you know, you're going to get that letter from a member who says, hey, you helped me through a really hard moment. And you don't know it at the time. So I love that. Great.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to switch gears a little bit. Tri Delta has always strived to lead through our values, with our sisterhood, and really to lead across the fraternity and sorority community and in the broader public eye. So I'd love to take this next section down to Sarah and Eve and talk a little bit more about that. So Sarah, you've continued to serve as an advocate even beyond your presidency, especially through your work in DC, and you are now serving as chair of the Fraternity and Sorority Action Fund. So how do you, yes, round of applause, thank you for that. So how do you see Tri Delta leading through those conversations, and why does that matter?
Well, first of all, I just want to say the one thing I learned, and this goes, you know, as president, when this all started back during the time I was president, about 2001, 2002, Tri Delta, no matter how old you may be, offers you challenges. Mm-hmm. And I continue to this day to learn from that. I never dreamed that I would be going to the Hill, advocating for issues that impact sororities and fraternities for the future, going to the offices of some members of Congress who maybe if I saw them on the news that night, I wouldn't really be agreeing with everything they said. But I feel that very strongly, and I've learned this through the years, that Tri-Delta needs a seat at the table. We are in a situation, and in a crisis situation, about the future of our single sex, and I use single sex because that's what's in Title IX, the future of those organizations. And we don't want others making that decision for us. We want to be part of those conversations. And as difficult as they may be, or as challenging as they may be, Tri-Delta needs to continue to be a supporter of having that opportunity for not only our alumni to go to the Hill every spring to advocate for our issues, but also collegians who have had that opportunity, and for many of them, it's changed their lives. It's, especially now, is very challenging, but we want to continue to be a bipartisan organization, and these laws and issues that we talk about impact us all, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, whether you haven't even thought about politics. The future of these organizations, hinges on the relationships we make in Washington. We had a huge success this past year with the signing of the Anti-Hazing Act that had been worked on for about 8 years. And that is, it takes a long time for things to happen in Washington, as I know you all know, and we've been trying for 20 years now to pass the bill to make it possible for your contributions for housing improvements and all to be tax deductible, 100%, and we're still working towards that. It's such a small bill that it would have to be attached to something else, and it's just very hard. But we have to keep being represented, having someone sitting at the table with our interfraternal friends to advocate and support these issues so that we can provide these opportunities long into the future.
Yeah, well said. Go ahead, Phyllis.
And if you love politics and are interested in politics or live near the DC area and want to get involved, I see Maya back there, I know Emma Beard's in the room, there's lots of people in the room who've been to our DC visits before. If you're interested in pursuing that and want to be involved, Melissa, I see lots of heads nodding, come find me or Sarah or some of these folks that have been on this trip, because we want that to be a way that you can contribute to Tri-Delta. People ask me, well, what are you doing now that you're not president anymore? Well, I'm working with Sarah on the PAC and going on those visits and stuff, so let's talk about it.
And for those of us that didn't have that opportunity, it didn't exist when we were in college, and I had the opportunity to go as a board member and really understood what opportunity we had available for some of our collegiates today to experience that. It was transformative. So thank you both for serving and for the incredible work you're doing and for representing all of us. I really understood the power of that a lot better having been there with you, and you are just so impactful in the great community. So thank you for that. Yeah. So transitioning from thinking about DC to our NPC community, and Eve, you stepped into the role as NPC chair after having served as Tri-Delta's fraternity president. And that's a shift from thinking about our membership of 250,000 or so to NPC, which is more than 5 million. Tell us what it's like in moving from guiding our sisterhood to representing this conference of women, and how do you navigate that kind of a change where you're taking what might be more personal to you and then thinking about everyone else in our conference?
You know that part of our purpose that talks about mutually beneficial relationships? For me, it was easy. I had been president. I got to be on the NPC delegation, so I'd had 8 years of getting to know our NPC sisters. And I knew many of them very well. And so when I was chairman, it was like being president of my friends, just sort of like. And like my friends, they didn't always agree with what I thought. But anyway, it was a high honor to be chairman of the National Panhellenic Conference. And the purpose of the conference, I can still say Tri-Delta's purpose, but I cannot say the NPC purpose. But generally, it's to improve and benefit, mutual relationships among all 26 groups. and even get along with the men when we have to. And that's not that hard, really. But on a national scale, I don't know about on a campus, that's a different situation. But the change was not that hard because I had served for 4 years as treasurer and as secretary on the executive committee. And so I had some experience on the board, and I had worked with these ladies. And so then when I got to be chairman, Tri-Delta was behind me 100%, and that was a huge, huge relief to know that I had the support of all of you, and maybe some of you didn't know it, but I was counting on Tri-Delta, and they were always there for me as chairman and stepped up. But those friendships really taught me, I guess, I don't know, when I was in college, it was just rah-rah, Tri-Delta, rah-rah, Tri-Delta. Rah-rah. And then, of course, when you get out of college, most of you who are out of college know that your next door neighbor may not be a Tri-Delta. She may be a Phi Mu, or a Sigma Kappa, or a Kappa Kappa Gamma. I mean, it's more important than ever that we help our young people understand, our collegians understand the importance of working together. Because on a campus, nothing's going to happen if you don't work together. You can be totally right, but if you don't have anybody behind you that agrees with you and will vote with you, then you've had it. NPC was a lot like Tri-Delta in terms of, I thought that when things happen, that they just happened overnight. And you hear it through the years. And I have the benefit of seeing lots of things that we dreamed of came true. And I remember when I was first on the board, and we thought we had all this power, not really, but I got out the history book and looked back, and some of our wonderful ideas had been proposed 10 and 20 years before. And so I thought, we're not quite as good as we thought we were, or as smart as we thought we are. But the reality is, in Panhellenic, I learned, and of course, I think Tri-Delta does everything beautifully, but some of the other groups do things beautifully too. And matter of fact, they're pretty fantastic. And when you're at the level of the National Panhellenic Conference, we all work together and we share things. And I thought, if only our collegians knew that my great idea came from Alpha Sigma Alpha or from Zeta Tau Alpha, and they shared it with me, or if I had a problem and I said, I've got this chapter that's just not doing what they need to do. I'm sure none of you all have ever had that, and of course they all went, we've had it. So you could call and talk to them. So if we could get our collegians to understand the importance that when you get out in the world, it's not a Tri-Delta world. We think it is when we're in college, that it's a Tri-Delta world. But your best friends are often in another group. They're the ones that are next door to you when you need help, when your husband has to go to the hospital and your children are there asleep. She'll be the one that comes over. She won't be a Tri-Delta. She may be, that's great. But NPC was, I loved it. It was so much fun getting to meet all the people that I met and get to know them and hear their ideas. And it taught me a lot about the importance of listening to other people and realizing that they have great ideas or they know how to handle problems that I thought I knew how to do, but obviously I didn't. So I would encourage you to enjoy your Panhellenic sisters across your towns and the countries and pass that on to your daughters and your sons, the importance of working together. And I think that it's especially critical in these times.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It's so true. You know, we say it in NPC, we have more in common than we do that's different, right? There's more that connects us and unites us as a
Can I tell you one funny story?
Please.
My son was a member of Kappa Sig, or he still is. And one day he said, do you mind if this girl is going to come over and she wants to start a chapter, a sorority? I said, okay. And he said, we need to write the ritual. And I said, okay. So they came over and they sat at the kitchen table and were working on it. And then he would make suggestions, and I thought, I bet that's the Kappa Sigma ritual. But I also, my daughter, her roommate pledged another group. And I was there when she came in from her initiation, and she started telling us all about it. And of course, I was just terrified. I thought, didn't they tell you don't tell that? But I want you to know it was a lot like ours.
Yes. Yes, we have a lot in common with our parents. And I think collaboration
really
and support, 100% important lessons for us. Jackie and Phyllis, let's move to the middle and talk a little bit about leading through generations. It's one of the things that's unique when we think about what organizations like Tri Delta and our Panhellenic Sisters can offer, is this idea of lifelong membership and being able to be in a room full of women at all ages and stages of life, and how much we benefit from that. It can present some leadership challenges when we think about navigating among different generations. So I'd love to hear how you balance listening to different voices and perspectives and generations to ensure that our members feel seen and heard and valued.
Yeah, I don't think it matters whether you're young or whether you're older. Everybody wants to be heard. I think Dawn told us that yesterday as she was speaking last night. And that's important. Doesn't matter your age. People want to have their voice heard. I remember when I became president, the board before us, Michelle's board, passed the torch and said we really need to change some things in the ritual. And she thinks that the governance change that was coming about during her time, it had nothing like the ritual change because we'd always done it the same way. And you hear that all the time. That's tradition. It may be or maybe not. With the ritual, it had been changed before. But most of us, including me, I really didn't know that changes had been made in the past. But I learned that as we went through that process. And we really tried to spend time listening to our members, both collegians. We had webinars. We were listening to our alumni. It was a hard, challenging change. But I hope that our members felt heard because the board really spent time trying to listen. And even we knew we were going to have to make the changes. Things were changing globally around us, and we needed to move forward. But even after we made those changes, we continued to tell the reasons why, to explain them, and gradually, more and more of our members came on board, and most of you maybe sitting here don't even know that there were changes even made way back then. But we've even changed again as we've allowed our alumni chapters to participate and preside over ritual. So things evolve, and I think the most important thing you can do is to make sure that you listen and explain why those changes need to be made.
Yeah, absolutely. The importance of listening and communication, I hear. And Phyllis, what about when you don't agree and you have these different voices at the table?
I am the boss. No, that's not what you say at all.
Too.
I mean, I think what Jackie's saying is right, is it's listening, and it's what Kimberly said too, it's who's not here, who's not at the table. We are having this conversation, we think we're up to speed, we're ready to make the change, but chances are there's someone here that's going to be impacted by what we're talking about, and we need to be intentional about bringing their voices to the table. One of the greatest gifts of Tri Delta is an intergenerational membership, and one of the greatest gifts of serving as a volunteer and being a president, being on a board, is that you have an opportunity to work with people who are at all stages of their lives. I mean, I've been able to see Lee Riley, Eve's son, was the we called them house boys at the time, but they were like waiters in the chapter house. He was a waiter in the chapter house when I was in the chapter. So I knew Lee before I knew Eve. And then I've been able to see Sarah's daughters grow up, and I've been able to kind of follow in her footsteps, and what a great mother she is and what a wonderful grandmother she is. I'm not a grandmother yet, but I hope to be, like Sarah. Same with Michelle also. Jackie, a picture of grace, just through so many life changes. And so being able to watch these women ahead of me navigate being leaders in Tri Deltas, being so graceful in their lives and managing these challenges, what a gift. And if you're buying a lot of retinol, quit and just become Tri Delta president. Look at this group. I mean, the fountain of youth up here.
Oh, yeah.
Am I wrong? Look how good everybody looks. Hashtag goals. Because I really thought I was going to look about 30 years older when I finally gave up the gavel. I felt 30 years older, but we look good.
Great. All right.
Elizabeth, there's hope.
There's always hope. There is always.
You'll get there.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so I would love to, just as you look around this room and you see all these incredible Tri Delta leaders who are here to learn and to just soak in training and take in hopefully a weekend that encourages and empowers them, what would you want them to take away about leading and shaping our sisterhood? What advice or wisdom about leadership would you give to these folks? And anybody can start.
Sarah, you want to go?
I think, first of all, thank you. This organization, I've learned all through the years, we can't ever exist without our volunteers. But one thing that I feel strongly about is when something happens, step back and take a deep breath and think about it, and don't take it personally. Like I've seen people who, get mad at Tri Delta or don't like a chapter, or something happens because of something that happened in that chapter. But just step back and try not to take it personally, because that's just going to eat at you for a long time. And so talk to other friends, talk to fellow sisters, share your thoughts. Don't be afraid to consult. So through the years, I've learned something from every single one of these women. Age doesn't matter. I'm almost 71 years old, and I learned from people on my paneling team I had who were, barely 30, or from collegians. That doesn't matter. Just find those people that you can go to and share your thoughts and your what's bothering you. And they may not have all the support to give you, verbally, but they can be there to listen and love you and hug you.
Yeah, that support network. Michelle?
I think what I would say is that, when we all started out, did any of you think, one day I'm going to be fraternity president? No.
Definitely not.
Definitely not. But what I think is common amongst all of us, and I know is very true for me, is that every step in Tri Delta, the more I was involved, the more I received personally. It sounds selfish, but Tri Delta is here. It gives you so much more than what I have ever given. And so for me, it's about being there and learning and enjoying every single step. One of the favorite things I did was served as an AA after I was fraternity president. And I learned so much from those college women after I had been already at the board table and loved it and developed great relationships. So when you're in the trenches and really working hard with the chapter, know that what you're doing on a day-to-day basis is making a big difference. It is helping women, and it is also going to come back to you in a positive way. It might not feel like that at 1 in the morning or whatever time it is you're having to solve some issue that's come across your desk. But I promise you that Tri Delta has so many gifts. I cannot imagine my life without my Tri Delta friends. Many of you No, I'm talking directly to you, and I am. I'm talking to all of you. I have met some of you when you were collegians, and I am so blessed. So I just encourage you, keep serving as a mentor, keep doing what you're doing, because it's a beautiful addition to a life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Well said. Jackie?
I read long time ago, leadership is not about you. It's about the next generation and what you're doing to help them develop, grow, the tools that you're going to give them, whether they're young collegian members or whether they're older alumni members, you're giving them the tools to make them a better leader. That's what Michelle was really saying. All the different things that we've done and that you've done throughout the years and the way you've served, Tri-Delta has given you the tools to continue to grow in your leadership skills. It's a gift. And we are so thankful that you all are here. You're making a difference in so many lives that you may not ever even know. But you will touch people because they'll come back and tell you what you did, what little thing you said. It doesn't even have to be something real profound. It's those little connections that you make that truly make the difference. So as you go out, you're not going to enjoy every moment, but I'm going to tell you, you're going to enjoy 99% of them. And those that you didn't enjoy, if you're like me, you really don't even remember those. You remember those special connections and people that you've become friends with. So have a great year. We appreciate you.
Yeah. And you're right about not knowing the connection you're going to make. So if you didn't know, when I traveled as a field consultant for Tri-Delta 30 years ago, Jackie was what we would have called at the time my field consultant mom, right? Because she was a volunteer, it was a volunteer role, and Gwen was president, and I ran over my own laptop. So just make that call. And Jackie and Gwen, the picture of Grace, took it all in stride and made me feel like, I have a lot of stories, we could go all day, but Phyllis does. But just, you know, that you probably don't even remember, I was mortified, and you all were, well, she does remember.
I knew she was.
But just that grace to be able to be, hey, I'm, you know, this crazy thing, actually, I didn't, let me just qualify, my dad backed over it. I didn't actually back over it.
Throw him under the bus.
But I had to make the call that I have destroyed my Tri-Delta laptop. And, you took it so well and made me feel like I hadn't really screwed up. It was all going to be fine, and we can fix that. So.
And it was fine.
And it was fine. And look at us now.
Look at us now.
Eve, rescue me.
I want to go back to our purpose and our rituals. I don't know how many of you all can say the purpose or think about the 9 virtues in the initiation service. I have found that purpose and those rituals provide the most incredible guide for a successful, happy life. So if you don't know them, look them up or call somebody that might know them, and the office knows them, or I'm sure all of you all know them. But I get, so many times I think about helping each other in every possible way. Being sincere, being patient. I'm not good at that. Being kind, that's very important for living. And Tri-Delta gave me that. I was the chaplain of the chapter, so I had to learn them, and they've stuck with me, and it's provided such a great guide. So hold on to it.
So Eve, could I kind of go off of that? Because that was going to be my advice. Oh, sorry, Phyllis, I know.
No, that's okay.
But for me, it was always, those virtues are amazing, and I always had 3 things that I could repeat to myself. It was be generous, be patient, be kind with yourself and with others. So often, it's easy to do that with others, and it's harder to do it with ourselves. And so again, be generous, be patient, and be kind with yourself and with others.
That's great.
Oh, good.
Phyllis?
We're all leaning into this, so that was similar. But
Love
mine
it.
for you, are two of my favorite parts, and I think they're so relevant to service and to particularly being a volunteer in Tri Delta. From the Trident degree, have confidence in yourself, ask questions, search yourself with questioning, and then become great at what you're doing. Have confidence in yourself, search thyself with questioning, be the master. And then, of course, some of the final stanzas of initiation. Go and charge thyself with love and be infinite and opulent. I mean, that means like put all the love bracelets on, all the love rings on, all the love bling. Spread it out through free sowing this full harvest spring. When you spread it out, you're going to be able to harvest it. It's going to come back to you tenfold. Love God and life and all living things. So those two things to me, we're there from the beginning, and speak to what Eve has said, speak to what Megan has said, and lean on those things in the wonderful times and in the hard times.
Yeah, it's all there. Kimberly, I think you'll round us out. And what can we share with women who may be thinking about what's next and how can I continue to serve Tri Delta?
Well, I will say that Tri Delta will always give you opulent, continuous opportunities of growth. You just have to continue to raise your hand. I think my suggestion would be doors open for a reason. You might not know why. You might never know why. But they're to shape you of who the person that you're supposed to be and address the issues that will face you. So my suggestion is always to walk through those doors, bring people with you, surround yourself with those that will support you and lift you up. So my pitch is, if someday you would love to maybe sit up here behind Elizabeth and far on, or you would like to serve on one of our boards and you would love to be able to influence our fraternity at that level, I would recommend that you raise your hand and say, I'd be interested in serving. We have a committee. It's called the Leadership Cultivation Selection Committee. I am currently the chair of it. And we would love to hear how you feel about the fraternity and what you would like to see and the people that you would like to see serving on it and making those decisions. And if you feel like that's something that you're interested, come talk to us. We have a booth right outside. And we would love to talk to you. But I would just definitely encourage to walk through all of those doors.
Thank you. Well, what fun. I could sit and talk with you all day. This has been such a treat. Thank you for sharing some stories, some laughs, some special moments, your hearts with us today. It's really been a gift. And I think I can speak for everyone in this room that we are incredibly grateful for your many, many years of service, for saying yes, for setting such a high bar and such an incredible standard for leadership in Tri Delta. So thank you.